Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Africa, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. America, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okello, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.
Thank you so much for joining me for another amazing episode of the Daily African Proverbs. My name is Simon Javan Okello. I am extremely excited to be here with you for another episode here of the African Father in America podcast. As usual, whenever we gather here for the African Father in America podcast, we talk about African Proverbs. So this show is called the Daily African Proverbs. And that's because we literally take a virtual journey across many different parts of the African continent, and we learn different African proverbs. And our hope is always to gain some African wisdom. Our hope is always to learn something new and to bring it here so that we can dissect it, we can learn from it. So right now as we speak, I have 3 beautiful nuggets of wisdom that I want to share with you, which my team and I picked before we gathered here with you. I am a little late today. Last night we were doing the screening of a CNN story that was done about Madaraka Festival, which I have been producing for about 8 years. And so Lavender and I, along with a number of amazing community members, including Freddie Mooks, who is the global chair of the Grammy Academy, and many other people, were with us live here in Seattle at Northwest Film Forum. We were at Northwest Film Forum, and for over 2 hours we watched Madaraka, the documentary, which I co-produced, and then we watched a CNN feature that really went way back to how I used to be a DJ, by the way. So it brought those memories back to the present in a really beautiful way. So if you haven't watched that CNN story, send me a DM and I'll be able to share with you a link so that you can watch the whole story. But if you're here with us on Clubhouse, take a minute, ping 3 to 5 people that can join us for today's conversation. And also, I want to bring you up on stage. And then I want to welcome you to join me on YouTube as well. I am, as we speak in this moment, I'm also live on YouTube. And my channel is African Father in America. African Father in America is the name of my channel. But I want to make it easy for you. Especially, you took your time to join us here today for an amazing show, and I want to make it easy and just pin the link at the top of the Clubhouse room. But for those who are with us on YouTube, I truly appreciate you for the love and the support. I want you to take a moment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and also if you already are subscribed to the channel, I want to encourage you to invite your friends, share the link with them so that they can also subscribe to the African Father in America podcast. That's on YouTube. I always love being here for the Daily African Proverbs, particularly because I get a lot of spiritual nourishment. I get a lot of grounding by being here, not just with random people, but with people who value this kind of way that we get our day started. We get our day started with the presence of our ancestors. These proverbs are literally words that our ancestors spoke when they were still around, and it guided them, So why should we neglect these beautiful proverbs? The Queen of England just passed on the other day, and if you look at the entire Commonwealth, they still adhere to what the queendom, or now the kingdom, wants them to, And a huge portion of the world economy is still influenced by the British Empire. And that's because they have their own culture and their traditions, which all of us will be, looking at and admiring over the next few days. But we forget that our culture is really the oldest, and we forget that we have a lot to teach the world, and my motivation is to help bring this to the digital spaces through podcasting, through the video content that we are pushing, through TikTok. We're actually going to go live on TikTok right after this, so you should join us there because the community there is also growing, but just around the daily African proverb. So what is the proverb that we picked for today, which is actually from Kenya? The proverb says, an old pot never lacks food remnants. An old pot never lacks food remnants. Any seasoned cook knows the value of a good pot. I don't know if any one of you is listening or watching loves to cook like I do. Even though I love to cook, I would say Lavender's fried rice or jollof rice or pilau is like killer. If you eat Lavender's rice, you'd never cook rice. You'd always want her to cook it for you. But really, when whether it's a trustworthy Dutch oven that's been passed down for generations, or a well-seasoned cast iron skillet, a good pot can make all the difference in the kitchen, And as the Kenyan proverb suggests, an old pot is even better, and that's because an old pot is full of flavor. The longer the pot is used, the more it becomes seasoned, This reminds me of how a cup that is used for drinking coffee consistently develops coffee rings around it. And coffee enthusiasts always say the more rings are around your coffee cup, the tastier the coffee is, But when you think about this proverb from Kenya, an old pot never lacks food remnants, it's really it reminds me of the other proverb that speaks about they say that new brooms sweep clean, but I think old brooms sweep cleaner, And this proverb also really speaks to a situation that is going on in Kenya. I want to speak about that situation in a moment, and I also want to share the 3 nuggets in a moment. But before we continue, I just want to quickly, invite, Jerry, and I see Yaya and Sarah. I want to invite you to join us on the stage. I see B. Harvey is here with us as well, and also Didia. Join us on the stage. I would love to hear your voices. This is the last session until Monday. We take we take Saturday and Sunday off from this live broadcast of the Daily African Proverbs. So I want to share the 3 nuggets here. If you have a notepad, I want you to pen this down, and I just want to share the first one here that says, a good pot is a valuable tool in the kitchen. It's really incredible how many times you use the same pot. Sometimes you even wash it. You cook something in it, you wash it, and then you use it for the next thing. But both foods you're preparing are for the same meal, So people can wait a little longer, but you, who is the chef, is willing to really, wash that pot in order for you to use it because it gives you the best results, So the value of an old pot is really important as a tool in the kitchen. It's really important. Without it, sometimes there's no cooking. Number 2, an old pot is better than a new one. An old pot is better than a new one. Literally, when you're in the kitchen, you don't know whether the new pot is going to burn your food. You don't know the quality of a new pot. You don't know whether it can withstand the fire. You don't know how much heat you're going to give it. So there's a lot of uncertainty when you're dealing with a new pot. And then number 3, the longer a pot is used, the more flavor it will have. This is especially if you're cooking using clay pot, this is especially when you're using clay pot. And also, as you use the same pot, whether it's clay or a different material, as I was mentioning earlier, you find that you get familiar with the flavors and the results that you get from your old pot. But also, when you think about this, it also speaks about people who have aged, our elders, whether it's our elder siblings, whether it's our elders in the community, whether it's leaders like Raila Amolo Odinga from Kenya, who contested for the presidency for the 5th time and is in his late 70s. He is literally one of the remaining revolutionaries in Africa, considering the work that he has done. But the way that the elections were conducted in Kenya, they were clearly influenced by the West, especially the British that just lost their queen. And the West is very interested in having weak governments and leaders that have been compromised, that have a lot of skeletons in their closet, so that they can control the resources of these countries by holding these leaders by their balls. So we lose strong, capable leaders through assassinations, through rigged elections, through coups, because the West is interested in continuing to control the continent. So for those who are watching and listening and have been laughing at Raila Odinga, have been making fun, around who he is as a person and how he has failed so many times, I also want to remind you that this proverb says an old pot never lacks food remnants. So the things that Raila Odinga has learned over the years, the things that he knows, if I was even privileged to sit under his shadow and listen to him, I would actually write a book. I would write many books, because he knows about our country more than anybody I know. As a teenager, I remember, not even a teenager, as a little boy, Raila Odinga's father was the first Kenyan president who was a freedom fighter, not just for Kenya, but for many countries in Africa. I remember going to some of the rallies and being so fascinated by everything they said, being fascinated by the massive crowds that were there, but also seeing how they were actually being, they were being chased by government agents, and sometimes people were being, tortured and murdered and disappeared as a result for fighting for democratic space that we enjoy in Kenya today. So even the people who are taking on the leadership of Kenya are beneficiaries of the democratic space that old people like Raila were able to bring to Kenya. So I encourage you to check on your elders. They have some food remnants in them. They have some wisdom, they have some knowledge, they have some connections that they can give you. But if you just walk over them, ignore them, they'll go away with all this stuff. They're like walking libraries. With that, I want to welcome you all again to the Daily African Proverbs. And now I want to hear your voices. I want to hear what Lavender has to say about today's proverb. And also share with us where you're joining us, Lavender. The proverb says, an old pot never lacks food remnants. Thank you so much.
Hi Simon, hi everybody. My name is Lavender and I'm from Kenya. Thank you for joining us today. And today's proverb, an old pot never lacks food remnants. Just like Simon said, our elders, I look at this old pot as our elders, and the gems of wisdom they usually carry with them, and we never lack some good directions from our elders. And that's all I can say for today's proverb. I listen to you and I'm looking forward to learning from you all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Lavender. Thank you for making the time, for joining us today for this is episode number 251 of the African Father in America podcast. So if you go online to all the podcasting platforms, yesterday I was listening to the recorded session, and I realized that we were at exactly 250 episodes. So thank you for supporting this work. Stella, how are you doing today? Where are you joining us from? And what does this proverb mean to you? An old pot never lacks food remnants. Thanks a lot.
Hello, Simon. Hi, everyone. This is Stella from Kenya. Right now, I'm in a place called Uyoma.
I love Uyoma. Are you by the lake? Or are you in the in inland, Uyoma?
Yeah, the lake is not far from here.
Yeah, Uyoma is
Uh,
no joke. Before they had that tarmac road, getting there was like a few days trip.
yeah, it used to be tough,
But now,
but now they have 20 roads and they have a lot of land. Wow.
yeah, it's a massive place. It's a massive place. If you travel around that region of Kenya, it's not even a big part of Kenya, but you realize that Kenya is huge and Africa is bigger. Anyway,
Very huge. Yes, so today's proverb that is talking about a pot, it just reminds me of uh, growing up in our household. There used to be a sufuria, a pot that is specifically meant for ugali, and and the pot, it was just one specifically meant for ugali, and it had this layer, as in around the pot, a black layer of the outside part was never washed, so it was kind of thick, and then uh, it kept protruding downwards, because I think because over here we make ugali like twice in a day, and now since it's only one pot, it keeps protruding. And sometimes when you didn't make ugali from that pot, you just see that people are not satisfied. They didn't believe that the ugali was good enough. So this proverb really reminded me of that, and I also want to agree with you when you are talking about Raila and the wisdom, how they still have that in them, something that, like, I would say this generation doesn't have. And today we were just talking with someone, and we were trying to do like an analysis of what just happened in Kenya, and you can just see how it's like people have been so brainwashed that we don't know what's true anymore. But anyway, the proverb is a good one, and I'm happy that we had to talk about it today. Thank you.
thank you so much, Stella. I was talking to my younger brother also in Kenya, and he's very heartbroken with this Raila Odinga situation, and it's really personally, I actually got motivated to share these proverbs also because of Raila Odinga. In every speech he makes, there's a proverb, maybe two proverbs or three proverbs. And when he speaks, even though he's a politician, you see that there is African values in what he says, but also the same African values of integrity is why he lost elections. Elections are stolen in Africa. But what's funny is elections in Africa are not stolen by Africans for Africans. It's stolen by the West to install puppet leaders that they want. And that's what bothers me, That's what bothers me a lot. And I just worry that the freedom that our ancestors fought for was actually meaningless, and that makes me really sad, It makes me really sad that it will probably take generations and generations for us to really realize our freedom and for us to identify leaders that we want to put in places of power and see them accomplish some of the things that we dream that we want them to accomplish for us, So that's a question that bothers me a lot, but there's nothing we can do about it in this moment, I want to recognize Anna. I want to recognize Didia one more time. I see Queen Kumfa Smith, who has been an amazing supporter. Thank you for joining. It means a lot. And of course, Nene and Jerry and Sarah, thank you for being here. We are here for the Daily African Proverbs that has been going on for a long time. Well, not long time ago, but January 2021. And today we are discussing an African proverb from Kenya. As usual, when we gather here, we dissect this proverb, but we also learn from each one who is here with us on the stage. So I want to pass it on to Latanja, who is an incredible orator. And Latanja, I love, your modeling videos, and just seeing you catwalk gives me so much life. So keep doing that. How are you doing? And what does today's proverb mean to you?
Thank you, Simon. I love to see your face and voice everywhere on the social media platforms. Thank you very much. That inspires me to keep going. The proverb of an old pot never lacks food remnants. It reminds me about resilient, resourceful, and responsible, because the old traditional way, for me, our grandmother Medea, she provided meals and nourishment for our family. And it was very remarkable to see, because her resilient spirit was that of tenacity. It was just one that she was very fierce. She was a spiritual warrior and an evangelist, and resourceful, as she provided a way of creating meals. And that was one of the things that it said, that the old way would make a full meal from nothing, especially from those who didn't have an eye for abundance. That you can look in the refrigerator for some and you don't really see anything in there to eat. But if you have a way of providing something from nothing, you'll be amazed of what can be created. And then being responsible. She took care of all of us as we were growing up. She provided a way, and it was just really incredible to see. I think about that seasoned pot because it's very sacred, and it's seasoned, especially if it's an iron skillet. It has minerals and natural medicine that heals because of the love that goes into each time it's used. And we should be grateful if we've had that kind of upbringing to bring that kind of tradition back. And I equate that to having healing hands. Anytime that you have someone that's going in the kitchen to prepare a meal, then you talk about the love that goes into that meal. That means something. That means that they're encased with a type of tool that you just can't find in a cookbook or anything like that. It's something that is a natural healing that comes up when they're preparing meals, because they're putting their spirit and soul into creating this nourishment for our body. So it's a natural healing. And another thing that I noticed is in John 6:9, it says, "There is a lad here which have 5 barley leaves and 2 small fish." And it's almost like it was created from a small amount to produce quite enough for everyone. And there was also a sighting about the feeding of 5,000. So we can equate this to say that if you don't have much, you have all that you need to create something from nothing. And that's what that reminds me of, how I was raised, and having a sacred pot to provide the nourishment that we need to fulfill our souls. And that is a time gone that we need to bring back and remember those moments as we have been raised to know. And I yield the mic.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Latanja. I deeply appreciate your contribution, especially when you said, when you don't have much, you have a lot. You have plenty, and that's really true. That's really true. I remember there's a project that Lavender and I did in 2020 when we produced Madaraka Festival in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. Our goal was to raise funds for about 200 women in the slums, women that they are like the last line of defense for the community. They are the ones who employ jobless youths because they sell food along the street, they sell vegetables along the street, they sell used clothes that people in America sent to Africa as donations, but then we have cartels that sell these clothes to these women who then sell them to people who live primarily in the slum. So one of the women that benefited from the funds that we raised was an old grandmother, that elderly woman that I used to see her when I was still young. And she was a grandmother at that time. So I think she's a great-great-grandmother as of 2020. But she was still taking care of many of her great-grandchildren. And I was really, really moved when I saw a video and just content about what she's up to lately. And what this proverb speaks to, and what just Latanja said, reminded me so much about her, and how there's so much value in our elders. And similar to what this proverb says, there is always something in old pots, And with that, I want to welcome you all. I want you to take a moment, if you haven't subscribed to the African Father in America club on Clubhouse, please do so. If you haven't subscribed to the African Father in America podcast on Apple Podcasts, please do so. We are now a 5-star rated podcast on Apple Podcasts, and we want to continue building that community through subscriptions. But also, if you love reading, all these episodes are now blog posts. Thanks to Stella and our team, we are writing beautiful blogs that we want you to check out and also enjoy. My brother Art, how are you? Where are you joining us from? And what does this proverb mean to you?
Peace and love, family. This is Brother Earth. I'm coming out of North Carolina territory. And, gratitude for the platform, Simon, and all the wisdom shared from the family. And I'm right in line with a lot that has already been said. When I look at the proverb, an old pot never lacks food, remnants, it also, too, um, makes me think of, for us to value our elders. Well, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, something called the Willie Lynch letter, but in the Willie Lynch letter, it talks about it says how they taught them how to make slaves. And one way that they did that was to find every different way to divide the slaves. The light versus tall, the light versus the dark, the short versus the tall, the old versus the young. And right now in our community, I would say for a big part or portion is uh it's a lack of respect for the elders as well. To a degree in some aspects it's a lack of respect for the youth. And understanding that 10 years worth of experience beat 10 years worth of schooling any day. The elders have experiences and wisdom that money can't buy. And it can always be beneficial to us in certain situations if we are able to, you know, hear what they saying and then apply and respect it. And and it also reminds me, sometimes just sitting down before my grandma transitioned, when she was 103 when she transitioned, but just having a conversation about uh, anything, and I would learn something in almost any conversation because she just had so much wisdom. She had seen so much and she done so much. She was constantly teaching and seasoning me, and I noticed that a lot of my cousins that were raised by my grandmama, they had a lot more seasoning and wisdom in them due to the fact they was raised right up under grandma, opposed to being raised by cousins and aunts and uncles and stuff like that. So, with that being said, I'll park my plane right there. Peace and love, family.
Peace and love to you, brother, and thank you for your contribution. Your voice is really, really valued here on this platform. And welcome, Mushi, and everyone who is joining us here for the first time. Hey, Queen, how are you doing? I really, really appreciate your love and support. Share with us your perspectives on today's proverb, please.
Oh, thank you, Brother Simon. I'm so happy to be here. And I think one of the other ladies said it. It's so good to see you all over social media. You do great work. You gather people. You're so communal. And I love it. So for me, an old pot never lacks food, remnant. I think of flavor and season. I don't know, somehow I went to conversations, right? A remnant is something that still remains. So when something is old and whatever it says, whatever it brings forward, would never taste like something else that was new because it's layered. It carries so many things. Um, and it's so important because we live now in a society where if something is old, you can just replace it with a new one, right? You can go get a new pot. There's commercials about, ceramic pots or different things. But when something is old, it has a story. It has layers of the people it's fed. It has layers of the different things that have gone into that pot. And when you cook in that, when you speak from that place, whether it's conversation, whether it's food, it always tastes different. It would never taste the way it would taste had it not been old, had it not gone through a lot of things. So that's what it reminds me of. I just think of seasoned conversation and the stories and the people that have benefited from that pot. And Queen, I'm done speaking.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Queen. When you are speaking, it reminded me of these proverbs because I feel that these proverbs are remnants of conversations that that were left behind for us to also enjoy. And also, as you're speaking, I thought about something that Stella said, and this when Stella was speaking about the pots that we use in Kenya to make ugali, and how the outside is never washed. I wanted to say that sometime the inside is also not washed for, when you make ugali at lunchtime, before you make ugali for dinner, there is this dry layer that is always left in the pot. I loved it. It's called odeyu. Stella, do you know what I'm talking about? Anyhow, Odeo was very, very tasty. For those who understand what I'm speaking about, it's just special. But I want to continue on and invite Atieno to also share her perspectives with us. We are here speaking about African proverbs and dissecting one from Kenya particularly and learning from it. The proverb says, "An old pot never lacks food remnants." Atieno, what comes to your mind when you hear this, and where are you joining us from?
Hi there. Thank you so much for letting me be on your stage. Thanks for having this on here. Thanks for this is the first time I'm on your stage, so thank you so much. Reading the Proverbs, I always just normally come back to the reviews and look and see what you have on Proverbs. This one's an interesting one too. An old pot never lacks food remnants. It comes to mind, for me, it comes to mind, it reminds me of, I look at it literally, first of all, where I look at the pot. If you remember that the pot that my grandma used to call it a gulu, it was a kind of long. I mean, it's just the same thing as the pot nowadays. So it was long, and you can imagine at the bottom of it, if it's an old one, it has cracks, so things remain on the inside of it. So just having the thought that first of all it's deep. That means every time they're scooping out of it, they don't always get to the bottom of it. That means something will always remain there. So if a guest walked in late after everybody had eaten, they're like, oh, just go and look in the gulu. There must be something still there. And, they can go and scoop further down and, dig deeper into it. It also reminds me, hey, I need to dig deeper in whatever it is that when you're looking at life, looking at things, always just dig deeper and pull out what's still hidden on the bottom, because there's always something that you never reach an end. There's always something further down, and continue to dig deep and continue to reach in and reach out and get to where you need to go to. So it's an interesting it's an interesting proverb, and definitely there'd be so much more to look into it about. But I'm totally enjoying this space, and thank you again for letting me speak on your stage. I'll continue to enjoy.
Thank you, Atieno. I just loved your contribution, and also when you spoke about agulu. Agulu is very, very important in our tradition as Luo people. But the thing is, most of us don't use agulu anymore. Most of us want to use other things. So as you're speaking about it, I was just really, really inspired. I want to quickly, just invite Masha Mutisi, who is on YouTube. She's, participating through comments, which is beautiful. And, she first said, happy to catch the show today after some time. And she says, congratulations for Madaraka. And then she says, in Zimbabwe, we call that crust cocoa. That crust, we call it Odeo. And we sometimes used to fight over Odeo because it used to be so tasty. And it used to be like chips or, I don't know. Yeah, chips. Yeah, very tasty. Anyhow, we are coming to the end of our time together here today. I'll be going live on TikTok just to recap this entire session for 15 to 20 minutes after this. My goal is to grow this community beyond Clubhouse and YouTube, where we're actually live streaming. If you don't know that we're on YouTube, the link right at the top of the Clubhouse room is the best way for you to subscribe to the channel right now, if you can. Now, I just want to check in with, with everyone on stage. I want to get maybe one or two closing remarks from one of you. So I'll just keep the mic, the stage open. I want to hear some closing comments just from one or two of you. Then we'll wrap up our session today. Excellent. So silence means everybody is great, and I am going to take this opportunity to just thank you again for being here with us. This has been a beautiful session. When we started our conversation almost an hour ago, we began by sharing 3 nuggets of wisdom, 3 takeaways that you can put in your pocket or put on your notebook and learn something from the proverb. And after that, we began learning from everyone on the stage who contributed immensely to what they think this proverb from Kenya that says, an old pot never lacks food remnants. Everybody shared what they think it means. And so if you're just joining us now, remember you can always listen to the replay. Hey, Latanja, I'll let you share your perspectives.
Yes, I was just going to say, when I look at the word "an old pot never lacks food remnants," we should not ever be in a state of lack. We should always know that miracles are possible because we are the possibility of a miracle. So let us remember that all things are possible as we believe in the Most High, the Almighty, that all things are possible. So let us reimagine ourselves with abundance, because abundance is our birthright. Be just like that seasoned pot and know that you have the ingredients it takes to move yourself forward in this life. Thank you, Simon.
Yeah, I think we have to end right there because, Latanja just closed it for us. So if you want to stay in touch with me, Instagram is the best way to do that. Send me a DM at Okelo Javan is my Instagram handle, and it's connected to my Clubhouse profile, so you can easily get to it. So please remember to connect with me that way. I'm looking for guests. We took about 3 weeks off to focus on the production of Madaraka Festival, which was really successful. As many of you might know, I grew up in one of the roughest neighborhoods in Africa, in Kenya particularly. It's called Manyata. And so this past weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, I was on CNN as part of a show on their program that is called Africa Avant, and it was talking about the art of live show production. So to be featured and for an event that my team and I have been putting on for the last 8 years to be one of the events that CNN picked to feature in this story was really incredible. So if you want to watch that piece, let me know and I'll share the link with you so that you can watch it. But also I want to thank everyone that took the time to join us last night at Northwest Film Forum to just enjoy the documentary together. So with that, thank you all again and have a beautiful weekend. Take great care of yourselves. Peace and love.
African father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. African father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okello, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.